Picture this. You drop a chocolate bar in your pocket, head off to work, and pull out a puddle. But instead of getting mad about your ruined Kit Kat, you end up changing the way humanity cooks food. Forever. Right now you've got a smartphone in your pocket, earbuds in your ears, and you probably nuked something for breakfast this morning. Here's the thing. None of that stuff was supposed to exist. Every single one of those things came out of a catastrophic mistake, a careless moment, or the most insane stroke of dumb luck. Today we're breaking down 13 inventions that accidentally changed the world. We've got medicines that were total flops, toys born from military research, and I saved the most unbelievable story for last. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button. Let's go. Fact number 1, potato chips. A dish served hot. Out of spite, this is hands down the best story about how rage sparks genius. Summer of 1853. Moon's Lake House Restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York. Chef George Crumb, half black, half Huron, serves a customer a plate of French fries. Thick cut, totally standard for the era. The customer, rumored to be railroad tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt, sends the fries back 3 times. His complaint? Too thick. Can't chew these. Crumb is furious. In a fit of pure pettiness, he decides to teach this guy a lesson. He slices the potatoes paper thin, fries them until they're shatteringly crispy, drowns them in salt, and sends them out expecting a meltdown. The customer absolutely loved them. Ate every last one and ordered more. Word spread through the dining room fast. Crumb started serving Saratoga chips as the restaurant's signature. He eventually opened his own place with a basket of chips on every table. By the 1860s, chips were being sold in paper bags. Mass production kicked off in the 1920s. Today it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Fact number 2, X-rays. November 8, 1895. German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen is working late in his lab at the University of Würzburg. He's running experiments with cathode rays and wraps a Crookes tube in black cardboard, just to make sure no light is leaking out. The room is pitch dark, and then he sees it. Across the lab, a screen coated in barium salt is glowing faintly. That shouldn't be possible. Cathode rays can't pass through cardboard. He starts experimenting. He puts books, wood boards, and metal between the tube and the screen. Everything gets penetrated. Then he accidentally holds his hand between the tube and the screen, and sees the shadows of his own bones against the brighter tissue. He was literally looking at his own skeleton through his skin. On December 28, 1895, he took the first medical X-ray of his wife Anna's hand. When she saw the bones in her own hand, she said, "I have seen my own death." In 1901, Röntgen won the very first Nobel Prize in physics. And he refused to patent his discovery. He believed it belonged to all of humanity. Fact number 3, Play-Doh. From cleaning supply to classroom icon, there isn't a preschool in America without Play-Doh. It's not just a toy, it's a cultural touchstone. People in their 30s, 40s, 50s still remember that smell. And the world's most beloved modeling clay was originally, basically a 1930s version of magic eraser. Joseph McVicker created a soft compound to scrub coal soot off wallpaper, but when people switched to gas heating, the walls stopped getting dirty, and McVicker's business went down the drain. The lifeline came from a nursery school. His relative, a teacher, handed the compound to kids instead of regular modeling clay. The kids went absolutely wild for it. McVicker stripped out the cleaning agents, added bright colors, and in 1956 launched the product as Play-Doh. By 1958 it was in every major store in the country. In 1965 the company sold for $3 million. Over its lifetime, more than 3 billion cans of Play-Doh have been sold. Enough to sculpt a planet the size of Earth. Fact number 4, safety glass, 1903. Paris. French chemist Edward Benedictus is working in his lab. He's running experiments with cellulose nitrate when he accidentally knocks a glass flask off the table. He braces to clean up the shards. But the flask didn't shatter. It cracked, but stayed together, like something was gluing it from the inside. He looks inside. The flask was coated with a thin layer of dried cellulose nitrate that had held all the pieces in place. A few days later, he reads a newspaper story about a horrific car accident where people were killed by flying shards of shattered windshield. He built the first prototype of safety glass, triplex. 2 layers of glass with a plastic film sandwiched between them. Auto companies weren't initially interested. Triplex was pricey, but it was widely adopted for gas masks during World War I. It wasn't until the 1920s, when car ownership in America exploded along with the accident rate, that automakers started putting safety glass in windshields. Today it's required in every car on the planet. Fact number 5. The pacemaker. This one might be the clearest proof that sometimes a mistake is literally the difference between life and death. 1956. American engineer Wilson Greatbatch is working at Cornell University on a device to record heart rhythms. He reaches into a box of resistors to grab a 10,000 ohm component. He accidentally grabs a 1 megohm resistor, 100 times too strong. He plugs the wrong resistor into the circuit and switches it on. Instead of the expected steady signal, the circuit starts producing rhythmic electrical pulses. Pulse, pause, pulse, pause. A rhythm almost perfectly matching the human heartbeat. In that moment, he remembers a conversation with cardiac surgeons about how many patients were dying from irregular heart rhythms. He spends 3 years building a miniaturized device that could work inside the human body. He shrinks the circuit down to the size of a matchbox and seals it in a plastic casing. In 1958, the first implantable pacemaker is tested on a dog. In 1960, the first human surgery. Arne Larsson, a 77-year-old Swede with severe arrhythmia, was the patient. The first implant lasted 3 hours. The second lasted 2 days. But engineers kept improving the device. Larsson lived with a pacemaker for 43 years, through 26 device replacements. And he outlived Greatbatch himself. Fact number 6. Nike Waffle sole. Nike. The swoosh. Just do it. One of the most recognizable brands on the planet. In the early 1970s, Bill Bowerman, track coach at the University of Oregon and Nike co-founder, was obsessed with one problem. Existing running shoe soles were either too heavy or too slippery. He needed something light with serious grip. One Sunday morning, he's sitting at breakfast watching his wife make waffles. He stares at the grid pattern of little squares, and it hits him like a lightning bolt. That same structure on the bottom of a shoe would give incredible traction. And it'd be light as hell. Bowerman goes out and buys several waffle irons. Destroys them one by one through experimentation. Eventually nails the right temperature and rubber compound. The result? A sole with square lugs, 50% lighter than standard, with unbeatable grip. In 1974, Nike released the Moon Shoe, named after the footprints astronauts left on the lunar surface, because the sole left a similar pattern. American runners wore them at the 1976 Montreal Olympics. It was a sensation. The waffle sole became Nike's signature technology and is still used today. One of the original handmade Moon shoes was auctioned at Sotheby's in 2019 for $437,500. A world record for sneakers at the time. If you're enjoying this, drop a like right now. That's the signal that tells me to keep going. Fact number 7. The microwave. If you're living in America, and this story was basically made for you, here's a fun fact. 97% of American homes have a microwave. It's one of the most common appliances in the country. And nobody invented it on purpose. 1945. Engineer Percy Spencer is working at Raytheon on magnetrons, the tech that lets you spot enemy aircraft on radar. At some point, he notices the chocolate bar in his pocket has turned into a sticky mess. The next day he brings popcorn kernels into the lab, and boom, the first microwave popcorn in history is done in seconds. Then he tries an egg, it explodes and burns his coworker's face. By 1946, Raytheon had already filed the patent on the first microwave oven. The catch? The first model weighed 750 pounds, stood nearly 6 feet tall, and cost $5,000. The same price as a new Chevy back then. The kicker? Spencer himself got exactly $2 as a bonus for the invention. Raytheon made billions. Fact number 8. Super glue. Have you ever glued your fingers together with super glue? Welcome to the club. A club that probably includes half the people on Earth. In 1942, Eastman Kodak chemist Harry Coover was looking for a clear plastic for optical gun sights on military aircraft. He synthesized a compound called cyanoacrylate, and it was completely useless. It bonded to everything, including expensive lab equipment. Coover shelved the experiment and forgot about it for years. In 1951, the same thing happened again. His assistant Fred Joyner was testing a refractometer, a pricey instrument for measuring light refraction, and put a drop of the new compound between two prisms. The prisms bonded permanently. An instrument worth several $1,000s was trashed, that same cyanoacrylate. In 1958, super glue hit shelves under the name Eastman 910. During the Vietnam War, military surgeons used super glue to stop bleeding in the field, literally sealing wounds until the soldiers could get to a hospital. Today, medical-grade super glue is standard in surgery. Fact number 9. Cornflakes. If you've ever had cornflakes for breakfast, and most Americans have, it's basically a national ritual. Just know, those flakes exist because someone forgot to put dough away. 1894. The Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan. The Kellogg brothers were hunting for the perfect diet food for their patients. One day they were boiling wheat, got distracted, and left the dough sitting out for hours. It dried out and got clumpy. Being frugal guys, they ran it through rollers anyway. Instead of flat sheets, they got flakes. They toasted them and served them to guests, who went absolutely nuts over them. They later switched to corn, which tasted better. But you know why the Kellogg's boxes never showed photos of both founders together? The brothers had an epic falling out. Will wanted to add sugar so kids would buy it, and John thought sugar was basically a sin. Lawsuits went on for years, but in the end, sugar won, and we got a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Fact number 10. Viagra. This is probably the most famous story of a drug that bombed, and became a legend. In the late 80s, Pfizer was testing a new compound called sildenafil. They'd developed it to treat angina and high blood pressure. The plan was simple. Open up the blood vessels around the heart. In 1991, clinical trials kicked off in a small Welsh town called Merthyr Tydfil. Male volunteers with heart conditions were taking the drug. The cardiac results were a letdown. The trial was getting ready to be shut down, but when researchers asked participants to return their leftover pills, the men refused. When researchers pressed them on why, the guys admitted the drug was causing one very powerful side effect. So reliable, in fact, that many of them wanted to keep taking it even after the trial ended. Pfizer immediately understood they'd stumbled onto a goldmine. In 1998, Viagra was approved by the FDA. First-year sales topped $1 billion. The town of Merthyr Tydfil still calls itself the birthplace of Viagra. There's even a commemorative plaque marking the first trials. Fact number 11. Coca-Cola. The most recognized brand in the world started as one man's attempt to kick morphine. John Pemberton was a Civil War veteran who'd been managing his pain with He was looking for a healthy alternative and cooked up a syrup from coca leaves and cola nuts. But in 1886, Fulton County, where Atlanta sits, went dry, banning alcohol sales. Pemberton had to yank the wine out of the formula and replace it with plain sugar syrup. Then came the happy accident. One day in May 1886, his assistant accidentally mixed the syrup with carbonated water instead of regular water. The result was a bubbly, refreshing drink. Pemberton started selling it at Jacob's Pharmacy as an invigorating tonic. Bookkeeper Frank Robinson came up with the name Coca-Cola, after the two main ingredients, and wrote it in the flowing script that the whole world still recognizes today. Shortly before his death, John sold the rights to the formula for $2,300. The buyer, Asa Candler, founded the Coca-Cola Company and turned it into an empire. And yes, the original formula really did contain cocaine from the coca leaves, albeit in small amounts. It wasn't removed until 1903, when the dangers became impossible to ignore, so a cure for morphine addiction became the most recognizable beverage on the planet. Fact number 12. MAUVEINE. Before the 19th century, purple was the color of royalty and obscene wealth. Natural purple dye was extracted from thousands of Mediterranean sea snails. It cost more than gold. Only monarchs and the highest nobility could afford purple clothes. 1856. London. 18-year-old student William Perkin is trying to synthesize quinine, a treatment for malaria. Every experiment ends in failure. Instead of quinine crystals, he gets a disgusting black sludge. After yet another failed attempt, Perkin decides to clean out the test tube with alcohol. And when he pours the alcohol into the black gunk, something incredible happens. The solution turns a brilliant, vivid purple-violet. Perkin grabs a piece of silk and dips it into the solution. The fabric takes on a deep, rich violet that doesn't wash out. An 18-year-old student realizes he's accidentally created something priceless. He drops out of school, patents the dye, called MAUVEINE, and at 18 years old, in 1857, opens a factory. In 1862, Queen Victoria shows up to the World Exhibition in a dress dyed with MAUVEINE. Purple instantly becomes the must-have color of the season. By the 1870s, Perkin is a multimillionaire. His discovery launched the synthetic dye industry, which then gave birth to modern pharmaceuticals and the chemical industry. Fact number 13. The zipper. Unzip your jacket. That move you make dozens of times a day without even thinking about it. That took 40 years of failure, heartbreak, and one critical accidental experiment to get right. 1891. American Whitcomb Judson creates a hook and eye shoe fastener to help a friend with arthritis who couldn't bend down to tie his laces. Judson patents it and shows it off at the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago. The thing constantly jams and pops open on its own. Only 20 units are sold. Total disaster. Judson spends the next 20 years trying to fix the mechanism, and gets nowhere. In 1906, Swedish-American engineer Gideon Sundback joins his company. Sundback experiments with the shape of the teeth. He tries making some teeth concave and others convex. They snap together perfectly. In 1913, Sundback patents the modern zipper. But even then it's not an overnight hit. The first zippers only show up on tobacco pouches and rubber galoshes. Everything changes in the 1920s, when B.F. Goodrich uses Sundback's fastener on rubber boots and brands them zipper boots. The real breakthrough comes in 1937, when a French fashion designer adds zippers to men's trousers. It's a sensation. During World War II, the entire US military switches from buttons to zippers. Up through the 1930s, the zipper was considered so scandalous it was always hidden under a flap. Today it's a design statement. More than 20 billion zippers are made every year. The greatest discoveries aren't born from perfect planning. They're born from mistakes, careless moments, clumsiness, and random coincidence. But notice, every single story has one thing in common. Not the mistake itself, but the fact that someone didn't throw away the result of that mistake. They stopped and actually looked at it. Which story from all three parts surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. One word, one name, one fact number. I genuinely want to know. If this video blew your mind, hit like. It's the best thing you can do for the channel. Subscribe, hit the bell. There are a lot more unbelievable stories coming.